27. And as we left off last week, I got a little messed up as I was trying to hurry real fast to close. But in 34 and 35 of chapter 26, we talked about last week how just because you live a life and you get your heart right doesn't mean your kids are going to follow suit, right? And it doesn't mean that you're not going to have problems in your home. And so we see these problems. We see Esau, he was 40 years old. He took 2 wives. We talked about that. One was Judith, which was the female equivalent of the name of Judah, which it shows that she had some godly characteristics. He had seen something in his parents, wanted to have that, but then at the same time he married another one, and she was ornate, fragrant is what her name meant. And so he also picked the world. This is where our kids are, y'all. They want this, but they want that too. And they don't see any problem with it, right? And so what happens? That drives a wedge between mom and dad, because mom and dad start picking sides and choosing sides. This is what happened. And so verse 35, it says, which were a grief of mind unto Isaac and Rebekah, these 2 wives. Why? Remember, this boy had no care about his birthright. As a matter of fact, he saw it as frivolous. But he's going to take it real serious in this chapter. And when he takes it real serious in this chapter can be called the rebellion chapter. It can also be called self-justification chapter. We're going to see this chapter today as we come into chapter 27 now. We've already seen the family fragment. Mama loves who? Y'all did read. Y'all listen, right? Mama loves Jacob. Yeah. And Daddy loves Esau. Yeah. And so Daddy is taking sides. Now, this is interesting. Why is Daddy taking sides with Esau? He didn't like the choice he made either, did he? Right. But his birthright's already sold. And didn't God already say the younger was going to be the ruler over the older? Didn't God already say that? Yeah. And so there's going to be an issue now with the youngest one to get a wife. They're going to send him away, or Mama's going to send him away. We're going to talk about this. What you see here in this chapter is a picture of 4 things. There's a picture of a divided home. Now, just because you're saved and you love Jesus don't mean your home can't be divided. And if you're not careful, you'll let kids divide you. How many of y'all have kids and you found this to be true? You can argue about everything else and you can work everything else out, but when it comes to kids, that's like the greatest wedge that there ever was. What do we argue about kids? How to discipline, who's going to discipline, whether one is excessive in their discipline, right? Jill and I fought about that too when the kids were young, when they were at home, because I always was one, I let them do stupid stuff because that's the way they're going to learn. And Jill was always trying to stop them or keep them from doing stupid stuff. I rather enjoyed watching them do stupid stuff from time to time. And so we were at odds a lot of times about discipline. And me, when it was she just grabbed whatever's close and whack them in the butt with it. Spoons, yardsticks, right? Flip-flops. Me, it was an ordeal. They're going to go to the room and they're going to wait on me for a good 45 minutes to an hour and think about it. Then I'm going to go in the room and I'm going to talk to them for a good 45 minutes to an hour till they're just wishing I would soon whoop their butt to get it over with. Amen. And then I'd whip their butt with my belt. And I would tell them, this is going to hurt you a whole lot more than it hurts me. I want you to know that. Then after it was done and they're crying, I'd give them a hug. And I'd tell them I love them. I didn't like their behavior, but I loved them. And then I'd pray for them. That's the way I disciplined the kids. We were different. And so she was also outnumbered in the house. 3 boys to 1 girl. And if you've ever been there, you know how that goes, right? And so that was our biggest point of contention when the kids were young, was arguing over the kids. discipline the kids, and all that stuff. Anybody else like that? Anybody else want to admit that? All right. I mean, money, we'd argue about money sometimes. That's just because I like to spend it and she'd like to save it. But that's another story for another day. So children can bring this wedge. So first of all, this chapter is a picture of a divided home, and they're divided over the children. The second picture this chapter points is a picture of rebellion. It's a picture of rebellion against what's right, against what's common sense. And it's also a picture of self-justification in that rebellion. Because Mama's going to justify her way of doing, Daddy justifies his way of doing, Jacob justifies his way of doing, Esau justifies his way of doing, and if you're not careful, we'll all justify ourselves, and we're all wrong. The only one that's right in this chapter is God, because God said this was going to happen. And I believe God knew before the foundation of the world that these people were going to have this happen anyhow. Don't you? And these people were going to do this. Does that make it right? No. God's will should be done out of obedience, not out of rebellion. How many of you understand this as a fact? God's will be done. And it will either be done by obedience or it will be done in spite of your rebellion. God's will be done. So it's a picture of a divided home, rebellion. It's also a picture of deceit, deceitful behavior, trickery and deceit. And we see that that's the prevalent thing in this chapter, is it not? Trickery and deceit. And so we need to understand God's will be done. It doesn't have to be done through trickery and deceit. It could have just come to pass through natural courses of events that these things would happen, and through good things. But that's not what people wanted. They were trying to deceive one another and trick one another. Mama's using one boy to trick Daddy. Never, ever, ever is there a good outcome of that, right? The fourth thing is rage and revenge. When you get to the end of this chapter, you're going to see Esau absolutely raging against his brother and swearing for revenge. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. I will repay. Now we know, if you've read the Bible ahead, you know that this thing is going to be reconciled, right? Yes. Oh my, y'all got to help me out now this morning. How many of y'all have read the Bible before? Okay, that's good. 3 of you in the whole Sunday school class. That's always good. And so as we read ahead, we realize that this thing's going to be reconciled. But wouldn't it be better had things transpired a different way? The world might even be different if things had transpired a different way. So there was rage and vengeance, and it starts in the heart and the mind, and this is what this shows. So let's start this, and we'll see how far we get today. Jacob's stolen blessing is what you could label this chapter as well. And it came to pass that when Isaac was old, and his eyes were dim, so that he could not see, he called Esau, his eldest son, and said unto him, My son. And he said unto him, Behold, here am I. And he said, Behold, now I am old. I know not the day of my death. But he knew he was weak, and it was close. That's the context of that. Now therefore take, I pray thee, thy weapons, thy quiver, and thy bow. Go out to the field, and take me some venison, and make me savory meat, such as I love, and bring it to me that I may eat, that my soul may bless thee before I die. And Rebekah heard when Isaac spake unto Esau his son, and Esau went to the field to hunt for venison and to bring it. So let me stop right there. In verse 1 through 4, you have this beginning stage. And this beginning stage is a man who is in his later years in life. Some say he's roughly 180. I don't really know right at the present time how old he was there. But he was an older man, and his eyes were dim. He couldn't see, he couldn't hear well. And he was there at that place where he felt like he was about to die. And what did he want? The main thing he wanted some of the savory meat that his son would make. Now I want you to understand what savory meat is so that you really can understand. Savory meat is like meat that's cooked in a crock pot. You ever have meat cooked in a crock pot? It's just tender and soft, right? And so the savory meat is a roast or a meat that's cooked, and it's slow cooked, and it's cooked with spices and herbs and different things. And so it's tender and it's very flavorful. And all he wanted before he died was a good meal of venison. There ain't nothing in the world wrong with that, right? And so this is where he's at. He was going to bless him. This is the key. So what he was going to do, and this is a custom in that day, and Rebekah would have saw this. She was looking for it. She was listening for the clues. And so what happens is this: right before a man gets to the place where he's too feeble to do it, he will pass on the blessing to his son, the patriarchal blessing. And so the blessing was going to be that Esau would be the ruler, he would be the patriarch, and the younger son then would serve him and be subservient to him all the days of his life. And Esau was his favorite, was Isaac's favorite, because he saw him as a man's man, a hunter, and all of this sort of thing. He was a man of the field. And so it was his favorite, and he says to him, "Go fix me the savory meat, and that the context is that I may bless thee." And so notice this, the tradition is always the oldest son gets the blessing. Now listen, Isaac was not the oldest son, was he? But he was the son of promise. He wasn't Abram's oldest son. Who was? Ishmael was the oldest son. And so now Isaac, he's going to experience some of the same things his father experienced in this matter. But God has already said that the older would serve the younger. But he's trying to bless his favorite. Now, what would have happened had he blessed him right then and there instead of asking for the savory meat? Would have been a mess. Because God would work out ultimately what He had already said. But how? We don't know. Everybody with me on that, right? Okay, so here he is. He asked for the savory meat. Now notice verse number 5. "And Rebekah heard when Isaac spake to Esau his son, and Esau went to the field to hunt for venison and to bring it." So Rebekah was listening. The context of her overhearing it was she was waiting on this. This seems to be the overarching context of Rebekah at this point. They are at odds with one another. She hates the fact of what Esau did with 2 wives. And Daddy don't seem to have a problem with it. He might not have liked it, but he seems to have gotten over it, didn't he? And there was contention there between Mama and Daddy. And now, so here it is. He goes out into the field now. Verse 6. "Rebekah spake unto Jacob." Here comes deceit. "And Rebekah spake unto Jacob," notice that next phrase, "her son." Folks, don't overlook that. Notice what it says. Rebekah heard when Isaac spake to his son. Now she heard when, now she's going to talk to her son. Folks, don't play favorites. We all have children. If you have more than one child, you know you're closer to one child than you are others, especially when they become adults, yes? And you have more natural likes and you just connect more, right? You can admit it. It's okay. It's okay to admit it. But you love them the same, don't you? But folks, this is a difference. This is different. She did not love her oldest son. And he didn't seem to have much love for his youngest son. The oldest one was his and the youngest one was hers. And last time I checked, it takes 2. Right? So Rebekah spake unto Jacob her son, saying, "Behold, I heard thy father speak unto Esau thy brother." And so she heard it. Here's what she says. This is interesting. Listen to the language of deception in the next few verses as I read through verse 10. "Bring me venison and make me savory meat." This is what Isaac said to Esau, bring me venison, make me savory meat that I may eat it, and bless thee before the Lord before my death. Now, did he say this? Partially, didn't he? All right, now listen to me very carefully. Rebekah knew what's up. If you back up, notice what he said. He said, in verse 3, take therefore, I pray thee, thy weapons, thy quiver, and thy bow. Go out to the field, take me some venison, and make me savory meat, such as I love, and bring it to me that I may eat, that my soul may bless thee before I die. So he didn't say that he's going to transfer a blessing here. Now this is very subtle, but it would have been implied. Everybody involved would have understood what was going on. And that's why this is so serious. He didn't say, come in that I may bless thee, but he says that my soul may bless thee. When you read that phrase has this connotation, that I may rejoice in the savory meat, that I may be satisfied in what you have done, that I may be blessed and extend that blessing to you for what you've done to me. What she says to Jacob is that thy father may transfer his blessing. Do you get that? Now she understood, Esau understood, Jacob understood, Isaac understood exactly what was going to happen. You go, my son, and you make me happy so that I can bestow the blessing upon you. It's understood, even though the language is very different. And so, notice this deceit. Now therefore, my son, there it is again, obey my voice according to that which I command thee. Go now to the flock and fetch me thence 2 good kids of the goats. And I will make them savory meat for thy father, such as he loveth. And thou shalt bring it to thy father, that he may eat, and that he may bless thee before his death. That's deceit. Now notice a couple of things there. She said, go and bring me 2 kid goats, 2 baby goats, and let me fix it. I know exactly the way he likes it. And I can make goat taste real good. And he's so old, he won't know the difference. Come on. By the way, there's not that much difference when you do savory meat anyway, because it's slow cooked. There's time involved. Now look, there's 2 different times. Esau has to go to the field. Esau has to hunt. Esau has to prepare the animal. Esau then has to butcher the animal and put it and make the savory meat. There is a considerable more amount of time for Esau to do what he needed to do than what Rebekah needed to be done. Go out in the field behind the house. Get me 2 baby goats. Kill them and cut a chunk of meat off. It don't take long to do that, does it? And I will fix savory meat. So hurry up, let's get this done. It takes time to make savory meat, but by the time I'm done cooking, he'll be done hunting. Makes sense, doesn't it? And then he's got to take the time to make it. So we'll get done what we need to get done while your brother is still in the process of getting it done. If you stop and understand this concept, you will understand deception. And you will understand deceitful people. Deceitful people are opportunists. When they see an opportunity, they're not looking for the optimal way. They're looking for the quickest way to get you deceived. And the most beneficial too. Everybody got that? Human nature here. Still with me? All right. Why is this important? Because we are studying apologetics. And we are studying what it is that brings us up to the promise of Jesus, right? And the fact of the matter is this: Jesus has no deceit in Him. And so religion turns deceitful. Religion wants something from you. Jesus dies because the Father wanted something to give you. Do y'all understand that? And so this is so important that we study this chapter and we understand this chapter, because this is a picture of what happens when men try to make the way. There will be deceit and trickery. And listen, little baby lambs and goats they're not the same as going out in the woods and killing a deer. The process is so different. This is the easy way out. That's the hard way. You get that? And folks, understand this. The hard way is a right way. An easy way is a religious way. What's the hard way? The hard way was that God sent His Son to die for us, to suffer and die. That's the hard way. The easy way is we do stuff so that we get right with God. Like Cain and Abel is exactly right. And so what do we try to do? We try to go the easy way. Look at what I've done, God. So, I did it, God. Look at me. So it's an easy way. The hard way is to put your trust and faith in what God has done for you. Let's keep going. You'll see more of this as we go. So bring it, and thou shalt bring it to thy father, that he may eat, and that he may bless thee before his death. You're going to get the blessing, boy, not your brother. Because you're my son and he's his son. And I want you to be blessed. They've already forgotten. However old they are, probably in their 40s or 50s or 60s, however old they are, they've already forgotten the promise that was made when she was pregnant. Right? They already forgot what God had said. Have you ever noticed this, folks? When you're trying to figure your own way out, you forget what God said. Let me try it one more time for y'all that might be asleep this morning. Have you ever noticed when you're trying to work out your own life, you forget what God's already said?
Remind me what God said to Rebecca.
So if you back up, I'm not going to tell you, but if you back up and you read chapter 25 and 26, you'll get it. Yeah. So he said the younger is going to be served by the older. The older will serve the younger. Yeah, but it's in context of those chapters there, and you'll get it, okay?
Do you think she was being conniving on her own behalf too, because she knows she's getting older, and if her son has the blessing, she'll be better taken care of in her old age?
It's very possible. Yeah, there's probably a wealth of the human that we can't put into this because we don't know the context of it all, and we weren't living in that context. But yeah, do people still do that today? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, people still do that. Yes, ma'am. Oh, you're through? Okay, I thought you had a question. All right. We shall see. Yes, sir.
The last couple verses of the previous chapter said that Esau was 40 years old.
Esau was 40 when he took a wife.
That was verse 34 of 26. Now we're in 27. Isaac's younger than Esau.
Right.
In chapter 21, you said Isaac was weaned. You said that takes place at year 2 or 3.
Right.
That's what my pastor said.
Right.
So how old was Isaac compared to Esau?
How old was Isaac compared to Esau? I don't know. Yeah, it was pretty close because he reached out and grabbed his heel, right? So Esau, what happened was one starts to come out, the other one reaches out and grabs him and pulls him back.
Well, chapter 21 said that Esau laughed.
Chapter 25, 21.
Verse 7, verse 9.
So Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, which she had born unto Abraham, mocking. Oh, how old was Esau compared to who? Wait a minute. Where are you at? I'm not sure of the question.
I'm getting you confused
Yeah,
because I'm on two different people.
right.
But again, how old do you think still 40.
So people say roughly between the age of 40 and 60. But it's speculation. We don't really know. I know there's probably a way to figure it out when you look at how long he was when he went to get Rachel, you know. I mean, how long all that stuff, Leah and Rachel and all that took place. There's probably a way to figure it out, but I didn't write it down. Right, so they were older than that here. So some say that it's roughly 13 years. Some of the people that I've read, but there's no way of really knowing. But it's 13 years later is what. Sorensen, I read Sorensen's commentary. He said that it's roughly 13 years after this fact, and that Isaac is like 180, but who knows? It's not given expressly. I'm sure there's a way to figure it out, though.
What does threescore mean?
60.
Okay, so then in chapter 25, verse 26, it says that Isaac was 80 years old when Rebekah bore Esau.
Right. So if he's actually 180, so it'd be, huh?
If he was 60 when Esau was born, he was 180, then he would be 120.
Right. Right. So, I mean, they lived so much longer than we live now. The answer to that, I don't know. I can try to figure it out, but I don't know how old they were at this particular juncture. I do know this. They were old enough to get mad enough and fight. Yeah.
But there is some age difference between the end of the chapter.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. There is a gap of years. And it's, like I say, most of the commentaries say it's a 13-year gap. Some say it's as much as like a 100-year gap. I don't know. There's a lot of confusion about the ages. But I am sure if we go to the end of their life and back up, there's a way to figure it out. Probably a way. All right? So, oh yeah, they're men. They're men. We think of them as like young men. But they're not. Remember, he already has sons, which means he probably already has kids. I mean, he has 2 wives, which means he probably already has kids. Jacob is the one that's not married. You get that? He's mama's boy. Now, we can say a lot about that right there if you want to, but I ain't going to say that, all right? So I'm not sure exactly their age. I'll try to figure it out if I remember it. Yeah.
I had read something somewhere where it was talking about deceiving, and it said that in a way Isaac was also deceiving Jacob because God had already said
Right.
it would be the blessing. So really, you have a part of deception.
Right. There's not a lot of communication within this family. And that's pretty obvious, isn't it? So we go from freezing in here to roasting in here, don't we? Anyway. So, no, you're fine. So it was too cold this morning. It's a little warm now. These air conditioners just have to figure themselves out. We'll figure it out eventually. If you're too cold, wear a coat. If you're too hot, strip her down. There you go. That's all I can say. All right. So I don't know how old they were at this particular junction. I can try to figure that out. I'll try to find it out. I'm sure somebody's figured it out that's much smarter than I am. So verse number, where am I at? 11 and 12. Notice this. Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, and now he's conniving. Behold, Esau, my brother's. He didn't say no. No. He said, no, wait a minute, Mama. Now my brother's hairy and I ain't. He smells like dirt and I don't. Right? So notice what he says. Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, behold, Esau, my brother, is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. My father, peradventure, will feel me, and I shall seem to him as a deceiver. Duh. And I shall bring a curse upon me, and not a blessing. Now, let me stop right there. I shall seem as a deceiver. Mama has been telling him his whole life, your brother's going to serve you. You're the better one. Your brother's going to serve you. We'll make sure it happens. Come on. I'll seem as a deceiver. In other words, I know this is supposed to happen. Mama's told me my whole life this is going to happen. But I will seem as though I'm deceiving my father. So there is self-justification in this. He could have walked in and said, Dad, remember what God said. And God said that the older was going to serve the younger. Now, Father, I get the blessing. And by the way, in case you forgot, whether it has been 180 years ago, if you have forgotten, my brother sold his birthright for a bowl of soup. Come on. But instead, he says, I will be as a deceiver. He was justifying in his mind. He knew what he was doing, and he knew what his mama was doing. He was on board with it, but at the same time, he had been told. He knew. There is knowledge here. Does everybody read between the lines a little bit? Okay. Now, notice this, verse 13. And his mother said unto him, Upon me be thy curse, my son. Only obey my voice and go fetch me them. Don't worry about your daddy. Do what I tell you to do. If you say that to your kid, you are causing problems. Don't worry about what the other one says. You do what I say. Man, you are asking for trouble. You are asking for it, right? And so notice what he did. He went and he fetched and brought them to his mother. Now, when you see that word fetched, I want you to get this. Esau had to hunt. Hunting is a process of time. To fetch literally means to pick up. So it doesn't mean that he had to go searching for them. He just picked them up and brought them in the house. They were domesticated animals in a pen or in a small field, all right? And so he went out, he fetched and brought them to his mother, and his mother made savory meat such as his father loved. Now here comes some serious stuff. And it shows you the condition of Isaac. Because if you came to me and you were wrapped in a goat skin, I could probably tell the difference looking at you. But he obviously was blind. And when he felt, and it also shows you just how hairy Esau was. Because let's face it, I've seen some hairy people in my life, but I've never seen somebody goat hairy. Have you? So I mean, he's a Sasquatch looking freak. So anyway, but he's got 2 wives, so it must not be all bad. All right. So, and Rebekah took goodly raiment of her eldest son Esau, which were with her in the house, and put them upon Jacob, her younger son. Now stop right there. Somebody asked me one time, now what does the clothes have anything to do with it? Well, you all got to remember, they didn't have Tide Pods to wash with. Do you know how they cleaned clothes? They put them in water and then hung them up to dry. Do you realize you could tell your clothes by the smell? They would still smell like the person who owned them. Y'all get that, right? Okay. And she put the skins of the kids of the goats upon his hands and upon the smooth of his neck. So he had a hairy neck. That's a weird looking dude. And she gave the savory meat and the bread, and she had prepared into the hand of her son Jacob. So all of these things would have taken place over the span of the course of a couple of hours. Whereas Esau would have taken an entire day or maybe even 2 days to do what he needed to do. And he came unto his father and said, My father. And he said, Here am I. Who art thou, my son? Notice the question mark. Are you my son or her son? Don't mistake that. That's important. Whose son are you? That's kind of the context in the Hebrew, from what I understand, is which one of you's son are you? So let's stop and put a little bit of the human element into that. He was fully expecting his wife to deceive him, or try to. Or he was suspecting his other son, her son, to try to deceive him. He wanted the blessing to go to Esau regardless of what had ever been said. Because Esau was his son, and he was a man's man, and he was the one that needed the blessing, not the other one.
Maybe there's a reason he was blind and couldn't see there.
Yeah. And so God allowed that blindness. God allowed this to happen. God allowed this to happen to get His will done, but His will could have been done a different way. You and I need to learn this. God is a sovereign God. And what God says is going to be done is going to be done. We can either allow God's will to be done, or we can try to do our thing and God's will is still going to be done. So notice this. Jacob said unto his father, I am Esau, thy firstborn. He's a liar. Thus his name is Trickster. He's a liar. I am Esau, thy firstborn. So somebody asked me one time, well, why didn't then the blessing transpire to Esau, since he said he was Esau, the firstborn, and he lied, and Jacob is now going to give the blessing to whom he thought was Esau? It doesn't work that way. It is the one to whom the man laid his hand upon and prayed over. That's where the transference of blessing went. Everybody got that? It's an ancient thing. We don't do it in our culture. We ought to. There's nothing wrong with doing that, blessing your children. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But we don't do that. We don't have patriarchs. We have a mess of people. And so, what verse I lost it here. 19. And Jacob said unto his father, I am Esau the firstborn. I have done according as thou badest me. No, he didn't. He's a lie. Lie number 2. Arise, I pray thee, sit and eat of my venison. Lie number 3. It's goat meat. And it ain't even his. Mama made it. That thy soul may bless me. Isaac said unto his son, how is it that thou hast found it so quickly? And he said, because the Lord thy God brought it to me. Lie number 4. How many of y'all know that when you try to deceive and trick people, you're going to keep on telling so many lies, and you better remember your lies. You got to keep your lies together. How many of y'all have realized you can't keep lies together and people find you out when you're lying to them? Yeah. You know, you can catch a fish this big. Right? But everybody knows. You can tell everybody you can play baseball till you play baseball and they find out you can't, right? And notice this. Verse 21. And Isaac said unto Jacob, come near, I pray thee, that I may feel thee, my son, whether thou be my very son Esau or not. Are you really my son or are you her son? Come here that I may feel you. Not only was he trying to feel him, there's a little deceit right here too. He wanted to smell him, didn't he? That's why the clothes were put on him. You see, Esau was a man of the field. Jacob was a man of the house. Esau would have smelled like dirt and blood and guts and such. Jacob would have smelled like Mom. Yeah. He would have smelled like, you know, whatever you clean the floors with, right? Pine Sol. Lysol. He just smelled like Lysol. All right. And Jacob went near unto Isaac his father, and he felt him and said, the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. He knew. I think he knew. But he ain't quite sure. Ain't 100% sure.
To me, he knew, but yet he couldn't.
He's an old man. Everybody still with me? Going to be done in just a minute. This chapter goes quick now. And he discerned him not. He was trying to discern. You sound like Jacob, but you feel like my son. I can't quite discern this. Because certainly Jacob couldn't grow hair that fast. He did not comprehend what his wife was capable of doing. So notice verse 24. And he said, art thou my very son Esau? And he said, I am. Lie number 5. I am Esau. Look at the next verse. And he said, bring it near to me, and I will eat of my son's venison, that my soul may bless thee. So he's going to say, next is, well, you smell like him, you feel like him, but you don't sound like him. Can't quite discern, but I'll know as soon as I eat that meat, because apparently Jacob wasn't a cook. So he ate it, and he brought him wine, and he drank it. And his father Isaac said unto him, come near now, and kiss me, my son. Here, now, I don't know whether you get this or not, but when them boys were growing up, there would have been competition constantly. for daddy's affection. And if you've had 2 children or more, you understand they always approach you differently. Every child approaches you differently. Am I right or am I wrong? Y'all have more than one kid, you know that, right? One child will always approach you, and one will grab your leg and the other will reach around your waist. One will want to kiss you here and the other one will want to kiss you here. Here comes a level of deceit that had to have been practiced. Because when he came near to kiss him, which was a common custom of the day, he would have had to have known to approach like Esau. Now look at this. And he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his raiment. There you go. And blessed him and said, see, the smell of my son is as the smell of a field which the Lord hath blessed. He was totally fooled by that. He kissed him right, and he smelled right, and that little thing in the back of his mind, that little bell going off, going, this is Jacob, this is Jacob, this is Jacob. No, he approached me right and he smells right. The meat tastes right. I'm just being an old man. Now comes the blessing. Therefore, and here it is, and listen to this blessing and see if this is not the nation of Israel now. Therefore, God give thee of the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth and plenty of corn and wine. Let people serve thee and nations bow down to thee. Be Lord over thy brethren, and let thy mother's sons bow down to thee. Did you get that? Let Jacob's sons bow down to thee. Because who's his mother's son? Jacob. You get that, right? And cursed be everyone that curseth thee, and blessed be he that blesseth thee. Now, we see that again and again and again for the nation of Israel, don't we? Yeah. And it came to pass, as soon as Isaac had made an end of blessing Jacob, and Jacob was yet scarce gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. So there's still a little more time here. Still got a couple of hours. He came in from his hunting. Now he's going to prepare his meat. That gave Mama time to do what? Clean up the kitchen. Clean up the house. Listen to me very carefully. I want y'all to understand this. In the culture of that day, as it was in many parts of the ancient world, the family lived in one household. And so they would share common things like a kitchen. Remember the climate, remember the culture. The kitchen was not what we would consider a kitchen. It's not an indoor kitchen. There is a place outside where food was prepared and cooked. It would be covered by an arbor or a skin over an arbor. And so the kitchen, the place where the meat was prepared, there would be a mess there for cooking and it would have to be cleaned up. That gave Mama time to clean up. While everything, all this deceit is taking place. And probably Mama was somewhere looking for him to come too, wasn't she? Look at this now. And he also had made savory meat and brought it unto his father. So from verse 30 to 31, there's a little bit of time that has passed. Imagine Isaac laid back in the bed, belly full of meat. He's stuffed, can't eat another bite. Thinking how wonderful it is, he blessed his son. I got it done before I could be deceived. I got it done before that woman could get that other one in here. Come on. Got her done. And he said, and he also made savory meat and brought it unto his father and said unto his father, let my father arise, eat of his son's venison, that thy soul may bless me. I'm here now. Again, the context, there's a little difference in language, but we understand the understood. In other words, let what I have done be a blessing to my father, and then let my father's blessings be upon me, is the context of that. Although he knew in his mind it's the blessing, it's that time. Right? And so notice this. This is anger is about to get here. Here's where the vengeance part comes in. We have seen the broken family. We have already seen the rebellion, the divided home. We have seen the deceit. And now comes the part of rage and vengeance. And he's going to swear he's going to kill him. It's not going to happen because God said it wasn't going to happen. But that doesn't mean that he's believed everything God said up to this point anyway, has he? Let's keep going. So it came to pass as soon as Isaac made an end of blessing Jacob, verse 30, Jacob was yet scarce gone. Verse 31, he also had made savory meat and brought it unto his father and said unto his father, let my father arise, that thy soul may bless me, so forth. Verse 32, and Isaac his father said unto him, who art thou? And he said, I'm thy son, I'm your son, your firstborn, Esau. Notice he stipulated he was the firstborn. Jacob never even said that, did he? No. And Isaac trembled very exceedingly and said, who? Where is he that hath taken venison and brought it me? And I have eaten of all before thou camest and have blessed him. Yea, and he shall be blessed. He's so mad and so upset he's shaking. You ever been there? Yep. You ever been so upset you just can't stop quaking? Mm-hmm. You ever been so mad you can't stop shaking? I believe that's the context here. This man, all of a sudden, that little bell that was dinging in the back of his mind, all of a sudden now he knew he had been got. And when Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with a great and exceeding bitter cry and said unto his father, bless me, even me also, O my father. And he said, thy brother came with subtlety and hath taken away thy blessing. And he said, is not he rightly named Jacob? Remember what that means? The trickster, deceiver, supplanter. Remember, to be called a Jacob was one who would trick you in business and so forth. For he hath supplanted me these 2 times. Notice this. Here's an admission. Esau's understanding now the seriousness of what took place years before. He deceived me 2 times. There's only 2 times he tricked him that we're recorded in the Bible. Only 2 times it mattered. How many of y'all believe that ain't the only 2 times he was deceived his brother? I would imagine that he learned how to trick him early. Right? And so, but these 2 things, why? All of a sudden it comes back to Esau's mind. It is rushing headlong into Esau's mind. He sold his birthright for a bowl of stew. And he says, these 2 times he took away my birthright. And behold, now he hath taken away my blessing. What's the birthright? What's the difference between the birthright and the blessing? There's very little difference. But the difference in the birthright is to be the patriarch of the family. And the blessing is the transference of the blessing of the birthright. Make sense? So they go, make sense to y'all? So it goes hand in hand. And so he tricked him. Now he hath taken away my blessing and said, hast thou not reserved a blessing for me? And Isaac answered unto Esau, behold, I have made him thy Lord. And all his brethren have I given to him for servants. So did you see that? All of his brethren. There's others. There's other kids. All the brethren. Now what he's talking about is the descendants. You get that, right? All the descendants, okay? And notice this. I have given him for servants, and with corn and wine have I sustained him. And what shall I do now unto thee, my son? My son, you're my son. You deserve this. But what can I do now? Esau said unto his father, hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice, and he wept. This is a weeping of lament. The word is the same as you get from the book of Lamentations. He is weeping bitterly. He did it to himself. And yet God had said this was going to happen. Right? Y'all still with me? And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, behold, here's his blessing. Thy dwelling shall be in the fatness of the earth. Look back there at that map, and you will understand the descendants of Esau are much greater than the descendants of Jacob in number. in landmass, in scope. Okay? And of the dew of heaven from above. They are blessed, they're blessed with land and food and so forth. By the way, they're also blessed with what else? Oil, natural resources, right? And by thy sword, now listen to this, and by thy sword shalt thou live. Is that not the descendants of Esau? They serve Allah by the sword. What's the symbol of Allah? What's the symbol of Islam? The crescent moon and the sword. Anytime you see the crescent moon, the little star, and that scimitar sword, that is a symbol in reference to the worship of Allah. It is allegiance to Esau and a rejection of Jacob. Oh, it still goes on every day. Every day. It's sad to me you see Christians wearing those symbols. Yeah. And by the sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother, and it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion. Notice that. You will have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. So guess what? That did come to pass. Let me stop and tell you a little story. There was a time, several times in the Bible, as a matter of fact, when the nation of Israel went into captivity. Yeah. So they went into Assyrian captivity, the northern tribes, southern tribes into Babylonian captivity. Guess what? That region is filled with the descendants of both Ishmael and Esau. All right? They went into captivity. They came back to Jerusalem. It seemed like a victory, but that's not a victory for Israel. That was a victory for God, because God allowed all those things to come to pass so that in that particular time, when the fullness of the time came, Jesus was born of a woman in Jerusalem as a Jew, as the rightful king of the Jews. He was crucified, he was buried, risen again, ascended to the Father. In 70 AD, what happened? The Romans destroyed Jerusalem. When the Romans destroyed Jerusalem, not very long after that, the Romans pulled out of the region. Guess who took over the region and was out from under the yoke of the nation of Israel until 1948? The descendants of Esau and the descendants of Ishmael. And guess what? They were out from under that bondage and they were out from under that yoke. But guess what? In the fullness of the time of the Gentiles, God will restore the nation of Israel, which He did. And He will bring all these things to come to pass, where He will then bless Jacob. He will bless Israel. And the full blessings of Israel will be upon him. And that is, all that land and all of that region will be given to the Jews. It's coming. And it's coming quick. And it's in our generation. Is that not cool, y'all? All right, everybody with me, right? So now let's look at the last little bit. I got 5 minutes. I want to finish this chapter. So notice this, verse 41, Isaac sends Jacob to Laban. This is important because he's going to go get a wife. Guess what? This trickster and deceiver is going to be tricked and deceived himself, is he not? And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing. That word hate in the English does not do the word justice. You get that? I mean, there was this guy, he wanted to kill him. Like, if I see him, I'm going to kill him. So Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then will I slay my brother Jacob. And those words of Esau, her elder son, were told to Rebekah. Stop. All of a sudden now, both of these boys are hers. Why is that? Who's the real deceiver in the family? Who's the real trickster in the family? Who's the one that plays both sides in the family? You get it. Yeah. Now watch this. Now isn't that going to play out in Jacob's life as well? Remember Rebekah? Remember the idols? And these words of Esau, her eldest son, were told to Rebekah. And she sent and called Jacob her younger son. Now all of a sudden they're both her kids. And she said unto him, Behold, thy brother Esau, not my son, but your brother, as touching thee, doth comfort himself, purposing to kill thee. He was so angry and so upset, the only thing that could bring him comfort was to destroy Jacob. Now listen to me very carefully. This is still the descendants of Esau. They comfort themselves with the thought of destroying Israel. They thought they had removed Israel for 2,000 years. They were victorious. As a matter of fact, when you study those people groups, and you study the empires, the Ottoman Empire and all of that, what do we see these people as? We see them, the magic carpet people. We see them as the great mathematicians of the world, the wealthy of the world, the magicians of the world. Am I right? You ever watched Aladdin? We viewed them, the world viewed them as a blessed people, as a wise people, as a brilliant people. Until Israel comes back on the scene. And all of a sudden, from being brilliant and wise people, they are suddenly war fighters again. Fierce. What do we think of when we think of Islam now? Do we think of mathematicians? Do we think of wise men? Do we think of storytellers? Do we think of carnivals? Do we think of that stuff? What do we think of? Violence, death, torment. Yeah. So the only thing that's comforting the descendants of Esau and Ishmael right now is the thought that Israel is only so big and they can destroy it and kill them all. And it brings them comfort to think that. Because Israel is blessed now that they're back in their homeland. And they're hated now. Everybody got that? Let me finish this. Now therefore, my son, look at this, verse 43. Obey my voice and arise, flee thou to Laban, my brother, to Haran. So is it Isaac that sins, or is it his mother? It's mama. And tarry with him a few days until thy brother's fury turn away, until thy brother's anger turn away from thee, and he forget that which thou hast done to him, till he forgets what you did to him. This woman's got a problem, y'all, right? And I will send and fetch thee from thence. Why should I be deprived also of you both in one day? Oh, I love you so much. I love both of you. Come on. Come on. This woman needs a death sentence or something. And Rebekah said to Isaac, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob take a wife of the daughters of Heth, such as these, which are of the daughters of the land, what good shall my life be unto me? So as you read it, Jacob then will then send him. But who really did it?
The whole time I've read this, I couldn't help but blame the mother and father for what Jacob and Esau.
So, here is all this turmoil. Let's put yourself in it. We got to go. But put yourself in it. How much turmoil do you put yourself through? God's will is going to be done. You put yourself through so much turmoil when we ought to just yield to God to start with. God would have had a way to work this out. Do you believe that? But He also knew how these people were. Yeah. And there is a lot in that chapter that I could not even possibly unpack. But we see it played out in our modern world, don't we? Amen. All right, let's pray. Don't forget church tonight. Father God, thank you once again for allowing us the opportunity to be here. Thank you for our Sunday school class. And Lord, I didn't do that chapter justice. There's so much depth to it. But Father, I just pray that you would help us to have learned what we need to learn and to move on, to go on to the next one and until we can have that understanding of how to give a defense of our faith, Father. And Lord, I'm glad that you take crooked sticks and you draw straight lines with them. And I'm glad, Lord, that your will be done. As you say it will be done. And we're thankful for that. Just watch over us now as we go our separate ways and bring us back together later. In Jesus' name, amen. Have a great one.